Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to talk about how to have an effective meeting, and I'm going to have the slide that I'm looking at as the thumbnail. Got this from LinkedIn, where I get a lot of stuff these days. This is one of Chris Donnelly's shares off of LinkedIn, and every time I read several articles a day on these different topics, and I enjoy bringing that forward because I think some leadership in certain venues struggle with it. And some leadership in certain venues don't have meetings at all, which they struggle with the results of that. I have a client that I do some consulting for, and I've been suggesting a certain type of meeting to them for months now, and they just won't do it. And the issues that come from not doing that could be settled from that are significant. So significant, in fact, and point that they possibly could have lost a couple teammates in the last few weeks because of their lack of sharing and the lack of knowledge. And sometimes that's with big companies, that's a big degree that is an issue and a struggle, because up top they may be talking about certain things they want done, and they have a conversation with people at certain levels, but then that doesn't go all the way down throughout the organization. So you have an expectation up top that's unreal because people at the bottom don't have the full picture and haven't been able to receive the proper communication and the proper timeline for things to be done. So that creates grief throughout. So I think this slide's a good slide talking about how to have an effective meeting. Here's my suggestion around meetings. Keep them as short as they possibly can be. Don't ever have a meeting that could have been an email, right? So if you could send an email out and you know people are going to respond to the emails, you ask for a response back from everyone on that. You send it out that way. That's a good way to prevent a meeting. If you have to have a meeting, it should have something valuable in it. So I like some of the things about this. They took one from Jeff Bezos, 3 golden rules of meeting, the 2 pizza rule. Basically, keep meetings sizes small and focused. So you want it chopped up into specific sections, but it needs to be focused. It needs to make the point, set the expectation, move on to the next topic. The second he says is dish the PowerPoint. I agree to that on some things, and other things I don't, because people learn different ways. Some people learn by hearing it. Some people learn by hearing it, is the point I was trying to say then. Some people learn by hearing it. Some people learn by seeing it. Some people learn by doing it, and some people actually learn by all 3 or 4. So you have those options that you want to put out there for your team, but you need to be considering how your team receives that information too. The next is 6 best practices to elevate your meetings. I think these are pretty strong practices if you're going to have that expectation, and I think to add one to it is you probably should send an email out 2 days before or a day before, just letting people know what the meeting's about and be prepared if you expect them to have any participation in the meeting. So the 6 best practices I have is 1, define a clear purpose and agenda. That's very good. Keep to the agenda, stick through. Don't let somebody filibust and take your meeting into the next day. Keep it short and sweet, but specifically relevant. 2, encourage active participation from all attendees. Do that. The more people participate, the more they get an opportunity to give their opinion on something, and then if you could use their opinion to show how that supports the solution or what you're trying to roll out, typically those people will be more bought in and more engaged. That's a good way to go. Have participation for all that are included. Empower a skilled meeting leader. So have someone delegate that leadership in the meeting and run the meeting. If you do that, you may find significant skills in people that may not have had that history. So I do think that's a way to stretch some people from time to time and see what they're more comfortable around doing. So empowered a skilled meeting leader. 4 is conclude with specific next steps and action items for all parties involved. You can take that and spread it out between individual people, or you can have a team A and team B and have them do specific parts of the project. If you're moving up the chart and into scope and scale, there's other things you do where you assign specific teams to specific portions of the timeline. So next is conclude. That's what we said just now. 4th was conclude specific next steps and action items. 5 is explore alternative methods of collaboration. When you're getting some feedback, if you're doing one-on-ones to find out what your team needs and what they're receptive to, that's a really good time to find some of these details out so you can better support your meetings in the future when you're exploring alternative methods of collaboration. And then 6 is continuously seek feedback and improve. Folks that have meetings that filibust and don't improve people, don't allow people to participate, don't actually accept and try to run with some of the people's ideas, those people don't leave very effective meetings, and it's kind of a micromanaging type situation where people will not be engaged. So if you want people to be engaged, let the participation be rewarded by action after the fact. Okay, the next is 3 proven tips to reduce your meetings. 1 says establish no meeting days. That's fine. Next says master your calendar, and this is a good suggestion. I think you put your time in blocks And in those time blocks, you do those specific items. And if you do that, you don't run into the old first things first versus a situation where you're doing everything based on urgency. So I think blocking your time is a great way to go. Some companies won't allow you to do that because everything to them is urgent. I suggest you leave those as quickly as possible, because the turnover at companies like that will be so severe that you'll never be able to build a successful team to try to actually attack what's important and what's at hand. Leverage tech tools. I think you should, but I think just like the PowerPoint suggestion, I think the more tech you use, that may turn some people off. Everybody doesn't want 15 additional apps on their phone so they can communicate with the same team. We've gone way too far with that nonsense. I mean, you'd be amazed. Well, I was consulting with one group one time, and they asked me to download 7 apps. And when I said, what are these apps for? They said to communicate with our team. I said, well, how does your team know which one to use? And the response was, well, some teams like using this, some teams like using that. It's ridiculous. You would be much better with a text list and a email list. And having people respond to the emails would be better suggested in that situation. Even though it might not be very effective, death by different tacks and too many apps on the phone is a problem. Okay, the next is meeting hacks. Implement meeting-free days. Mentioned that before. Steve Jobs' walk method. He used to walk, and what it was set up around the gimbal walk thoughts. While you were walking, you could come up with fresh ideas because you weren't stuck into a certain office which may limit your thinking to certain subject matter. So it's not a bad idea. 3 is Richard Branson's stand-up rule. Avoid chairs and have stand-up meetings to keep them short and energetic. I don't disagree with that. I used to do my morning stretches at plants where we were all standing in a stretch area where we were all talking, we were giving feedback, people were energetic and paying attention. I think that's a good way to go because people are more enthusiastic and more awake when they're standing. You put this person in a chair and you give them a PowerPoint presentation for half an hour, they're going to be asleep and not going to be well motivated to do much at all. Next is Warren Buffett's 5-minute rule. Covering the agenda and topics in 5 minutes or less, or schedule separate meetings if more time is needed. I agree with that. Most meetings, they just have to have the clear communication and have an opportunity to ask specific questions. So the meeting shouldn't have to last a very long time. You should be able to do that very quickly, especially once your team knows you and they're comfortable with you. They should be able to ask questions freely and feel comfortable in the feedback they're going to get. And number 5 here is Elon Musk's 80-20 rule. Only invite people who will add 80% of the value and results to avoid unnecessary participants. Man, I can't speak. So I think that's a good one. Only invite people who will add 80% of the value and the results to avoid unnecessary participants. I think that's good twofold. One, you don't have people participating in a meeting that don't want to be there, don't add value in the first place. And 2, the information and the opinions that you'll get will be of more value because these are people specifically engaged around what you are looking into. So there's a bunch of meeting tools. This is some of the stuff I talked about earlier. A couple different apps. Otter AI to transcribe conversations, not a bad idea. Loom, Tactique, basically it's another GPT. So yeah, you'll see those on there, some meeting tools. I think keep meetings simple. The biggest point about a meeting is you want the communication to be clear. So I will add this little item as the thumbnail for the video. Hope you like subjects such as these. I'm going to try to run through several videos fairly quickly this week because I've made a majority of what I've made recently been about 20 to 30 minutes. So we will try to make this week's versions a little less than 10. If you like information such as this and conversations such as these, please join, please like, and please subscribe. I'm Ben. Be good.